Alright, okay. So, I see we've already assembled. First of all, I hope you guys can hear me. Is the audio balance fine? Too quiet, too loud? Alright, wonderful. Well, good morning, Johnny. Hey, Noir. Nice to see you coming in from Brazil. Hey, Tanker. Hey, Howdy. Hey, Ghost. Hey, Phobos. Hey, Ajax. Wonderful to see you all in the new year. Happy New Year, guys. Happy New Year to everyone. Hope you've had a wonderful Christmas and a good slide over into the new year. Hey, Ali. What is a Stug E100, Howdy? Well, I'd say we can just have a look at that. This vehicle is currently work in progress. Well, currently in this build of the game, right? So this is the build from just before Christmas. We didn't manage to run a complete build since then, but we already have the full texture set for it, so it genuinely looks good. I might actually show that one later. I'll have to have a quick look at that. I might go ahead and show a little bit of Unity raw footage. There you can see the textures. Essentially what this vehicle is a reconstruction. So there is documentation. You will probably find it in Panzertracts, to be honest. About the plans for mounting a larger gun on the E100 chassis in a Sturmgeschütz or assault gun configuration, right? This is essentially the proposal that the Jagdpanzer E100 from World of Tanks is based on. And this is our reconstruction of that. So the basically the historical basis for this is we all know the E100 chassis, so this is very well documented. We have blueprints, it was built, we have photos, all of that. So it's pretty clear how exactly all of this looked and where all the components were. As for the casemate, it's a little bit of a more difficult story. Essentially, there are partial blueprints that show the mounting of the gun in this sort of ball mount style, and the casemate as well as the thickness, but it doesn't show this rear part. And what we did is we said, okay, there's sufficient evidence that this was feasible, that this was planned, and we have drawings for how the critical parts would have looked. So essentially we had a look at dimensions and all the necessary parts you'd have to put inside, and it's pretty much the same size as the E100 turret, roughly. So it also has the same armored layout. So it's a bit flatter, right? But it's essentially a Jagdtiger style casemate on an E100 with a larger gun. And the part that is reconstructed is essentially this part here. So how the rear of the casemate would have looked exactly, we don't know, but we can make pretty decent assumptions based off of the part here in the front. Now the reason why the casemate is not in the rear is because the E100 has the engine in the rear. So it wouldn't work to put the casemate back here. I think it may also cause problems with the entire suspension, simply where the weight is. And this is essentially the most sensible reconstruction from our point of view. That's what this vehicle is. Hey Kronos, frohes Neues. Right, if we have no more questions right now, I'd say we just get into it. We roll around for a few games. I'm actually going to do a bit of testing as well. I want to test vehicle driving behavior and just spot a few vehicles that may not be completely tuned yet, right? Because most of overall, the driving physics I think are in a pretty good spot right now. The most glaring issue, in quotation marks, that exists is some vehicles just aren't properly fine-tuned, right? And if you can help us find those, that's the easiest, right? Don't think we'll need any of those really. Throughout the stream, I'll talk through a few of the changes that we're working on, but we'll keep it casual, we'll keep it relaxed. Lots of heavy tanks here. I'll just change this one. The updated version of the game also has a much less intrusive expanded HUD. As you can see there, the old textures, they take away quite a lot of space, so I don't really like to use it. But the next update, that's going to change quite a lot. So the newest demo is V3, this is the one that I'm playing. There should be a V4 in the near future, so it's mostly going to have a few bug fixes and some improvements. We'll probably wait until we can get the lip streaming in, which that may actually be the first big update to mention, right? Hey Phantom Strike. I'm glad you appreciated the updates. Going off of what I just mentioned, what we're gonna introduce very soon, I can't put an exact date on when, but it'll happen until the next playtest for sure, is a special feature in graphics called lip streaming. The idea is that when you have elements that are further away, like this rock back there, you don't need to load the texture in the full resolution. Oh, god damn it. And the idea behind that is that you can load textures only at the resolution that you actually need them, and this means that you can vastly reduce video RAM usage. And at the moment our video RAM usage is kind of high because we don't have that feature. It was caused by essentially a larger chain of events where some shaders and assets that we were using didn't support the lip streaming because someone else was supplying a feature for those guys, and they just didn't have the right tools to make lip streaming work. But since all of that has been resolved now, we should be able to bring those performance improvements to the game. It's mostly going to reduce video RAM usage, and this is going to be very visible for the higher quality settings. So essentially, you should be able to play the game nicely with 6 GB of video RAM. So you can run high texture settings on a, let's say, a GTX 1060. You don't need a card with like 8 or 10 GB of video RAM. You don't need that. And for all of the lower performance cards, or the video cards with less video RAM, what this should bring is that you can load high resolution textures. So because we don't need to load, let's say, that building or that bridge back there at a high resolution, we can save video RAM on those and use more video RAM for the textures that are close. Because for the moment what we need to do is we just have to reduce texture quality across the board for lower quality settings, which of course reduces visual fidelity quite a bit, and unnecessarily so, right? It's basically a hot fix. That's, yeah, it's not ideal, but nothing we can do about it. So far. Game sound is a bit too loud. 1 second, I'll go ahead. I'll tune it down a little bit. So we'll just see how that feels. This one I think was broken. So we'll skip that one. It's already fixed in the editor, but it's not going to work in the offline demo right now. Essentially there was just a mistake, a missing value in the drivetrain, which means the drivetrain doesn't work. It just falls apart essentially, and it's just a stationary bunker, which is I don't know, not super exciting to play. I'll be honest. Hi Lupo. Now, speaking about fixes, one thing that was a major issue, unintended, is that when you drive in reverse and you steer, that's fine, right? The problem is when you drive in reverse, let go, and then try to turn left or right. The time it takes to shift into forward gear is a bit too high, and this means that you can have a scenario where people would let go of the reverse key and try to turn, and the vehicle wouldn't turn in the direction that they wanted. And this is something that we cannot 100% eliminate it, because there always is a small timing window where you can essentially try to input something while the vehicle is still in reverse, but we managed to vastly reduce that window, so it's much harder to pull off. You have to essentially deliberately try it. So this should mostly solve that issue. Can't quite get an elevation there. Hey Mike, dir auch ein frohes Neues. Oh, let's turn off camera shake. That was a bad one. This is another thing that will probably try to address, improve some of the NPC behavior. Like they do this wiggling because it's unsure which vehicle to angle against. It's trying to angle against those guys and against me as well. That's why it wiggles back and forth. Es kommt drauf an, Kronos. So, the explosion that or the VFX that you get when knocking out a vehicle, it's actually randomized. So it depends on where you shoot. I'll translate into German in a second. And sometimes you don't get a VFX because, you know, tanks just don't always explode. We'll have to see if this is a huge problem for people, then we can also just play it all the time. But for instance, if you shoot the ammo when knocking out the vehicle, then you always get an explosion. We can demonstrate that here. See there, we get a cook-off. I think this one was a little hard to steer on the reverse, so I'll write that down. Also Kronos, um das nochmal kurz auf Deutsch zusammenzufassen. Grundsätzlich ist es so, es hängt davon ab, was du beim Fahrzeug triffst. Also wenn du zum Beispiel beim letzten Treffer, bevor das Fahrzeug explodiert, die Munition triffst, kriegst du immer eine Explosion. Und manchmal ist es eben so, dass nichts abgespült wird und das Fahrzeug quasi nur ausraucht. Das ist einstellbar, wenn das ein großes Problem ist. Dann können wir das auch umstellen, dass es immer eine Explosion gibt. So. Another thing we'll also be working on is essentially what I'm doing now a little bit as well, right? Just trying out different vehicles and essentially testing how they steer in different situations, because we have different behavior between steering when stationary or in low speed versus at high speed. For instance, this one I think feels pretty good, like especially at higher speeds, like you can steer pretty well. At low speeds, it's still decently maneuverable, right? I mean, it's a really slow tank. So it shouldn't be fast, right? But it feels good enough. You can maneuver it well enough, and that's pretty much what we're looking for with this one. But some vehicles can have problems with steering, and that is entirely due to how they're set up. Right? There may just be a mistake in how some of the values are configured, Don't ask me why exactly they're doing that. That's something that I'm not in charge of building this, basically, but we'll have to investigate why they're doing this weird behavior. It may be because another vehicle blocks their path temporarily, and they then try to drive around the vehicle. Oh, okay. Is it good now? Grüß dich, Tiburius. Also ich habe nicht groß gefeiert. Beziehungsweise ohne Knaller. Ich habe ein schönes Abendessen gemacht und insofern ist das Risiko, Finger zu verlieren, sehr niedrig gewesen. YouTube stream quality is deteriorated. Can you have a quick look at Twitch and confirm, or can Twitch confirm if it's the same for them, or if Twitch is fine? I can see that we should have pretty much. All right. That. Should be fine now. But the stream quality, I don't know what's causing that, I'll be honest, because I'm streaming on Twitch and YouTube in parallel, so they should get pretty much the same quality. I'll actually put that in the title, so no one's surprised. So everyone should be able to see that it's both English and German. Otherwise, Nick, you might want to switch over to Twitch. Maybe the quality is better there. I'll drop the link for you. Maybe that just has something to do with how Twitch handles the compression. As I don't really have separate output settings for Twitch and YouTube. So I think that may just be platform dependent. 1 second, let's try. Stationary return feels fine. Yeah, I guess the low speed steering is fine. I mean, it's a 70-ton tank. Yeah, Kronos, the release date plans haven't changed. So for everyone, we still plan to release the game end of March or early April. So that hasn't changed. We haven't had any major hiccups or issues that would postpone that. Ah. Might have to double check that, because that one should go through. You can mostly just sit here and just out DPM him, I'm pretty sure. Oh no, Jesus. One thing that these can't do at the moment is they can't really see each other, right? So they will block each other's positions, and that can cause problems like that, right? It's incredibly annoying, but we'll look to get a fix for that. The crumble, I'll have a look at that resume. But please remind me after this game so I can try it. The Actag is a little bit weak on the slow speed steering, but oh god damn it. This is another thing. For instance, they use the center of the gun as a reference for aiming, which can be incredibly annoying because they just constantly knock out your gun. Sorry, I was taking notes. He's probably gonna HE me now. Ah. Center mass? What do you mean by that? Let's have a look at the crumble. Rank 4. Let's have a look at that one. Ja, danke Kronos. Stanislav, the Jagdtiger has an 8.8. It's not the big gun, it's the small one. Oh, no, the bots don't shoot center mass. They actually aim for weak points. So the stationary turn feels alright. First steer is maybe a little slow. Might want to turn that up a little bit. The thing is, with these things you make adjustments by like 3% and it makes a very big difference. Mid-range feels okay. Ah, yeah, okay. This is essentially the issue with this one, is that the crumble has differential steering, right? Which means that the way it steers is you have a little bit less speed on this side than on that side, and that makes you drive a curve, right, or vice versa. Now, what you have to configure is you have to define how the speeds are calculated, essentially, or how the power is split between these two, right? And you do that via a steering ratio or multiple steering radii, for that matter, right? It essentially boils down to how the differential, how the gears are actually designed on the real vehicle. Now what the problem with this one is, the gear ratio for the low speed steering is a bit, let me think, it's a bit too high, I think, which is why it doesn't steer as much as I'd like it to. And the one for the high speed scenarios is a bit too low, which means that there is too much of a difference between the two tracks, which means it steers too hard, right? I'll write that down. We'll get that in with the next patch. Thank you for pointing that out. Happy New Year, Thomas. So, Thomas just asked about being able to break the tracks on one side. I actually got to check this because I don't know if it's in this version of the demo already, right? We added this, but it's only for clutch braking vehicles. So you don't have the ability to like break the tracks on a Leopard like that. But you do have more options for steering vehicles with a clutch braking setup. This means that vehicles that essentially steer by braking one side of the track, so stuff like T-34s, early Panzer IIIs, stuff like that. I'll just have to try that. So the idea is when you input... Oh, no, this is still the old setup. I might show that off in the editor later. So the idea is that when going in a straight line, you just make a course correction. We don't use the full braking force, and you can switch between that by pressing A or D alone versus pressing A or D combined with W, right? And this version of the demo doesn't have that yet. So that is an improvement that is coming with the next patch. That's another layer on top. When you do, I guess, high-speed maneuvers or you drive down a hill, it is much easier to lose traction or to do like 180 flips, simply because not all of the wheels may have contact at a given time, right? It's possible that they get lift off from the ground, and then you suddenly lose, 20-30% of your traction. And then you steer and you just get into a slide that you basically can't recover. Turning stationary feels appropriately sluggish. That feels decent, I'd say. Let's go half speed. Yeah, that's too much. That's too much. That's too aggressive. Like, it's fine if it's somewhat nippy, but this is too aggressive, especially if you go at higher speed. This is gonna be way too aggressive for turning. Like here, yeah, you immediately... Yep. That one certainly needs an adjustment. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, so with the AMX, it's the same thing, right? It's the same as the Cromwell. Essentially, you can make a reasonable guess as to which values you should use approximately, but then you just have to fine-tune things, and whenever you adjust something else, like for instance brake force or traction mechanics or something, it can cause vehicles to over or understeer or over or underreact, right? It can just happen, right? So it helps if you just try out vehicles and tell us, because we can't afford all day just testing out every single vehicle every single time. That's a bit too much at the moment. So we just need some feedback from you guys as well. One thing which I remember had somewhat problematic steering was the KV/IS series. So essentially the KV122, IS1, ICU152, they're pretty much all the same in the drivetrain layout. They all have the KV1S drivetrain. So it doesn't really matter which one we pick. The main difference is weight and armament, so we can have a look at those. One neat thing I'd like to point out, if you look at the ISU 152, right, one may be tempted to use the BR540 round simply because it has higher pen. Like it has a 198 flat compared to 186. The main difference here is really the performance at angles, right? If you look at the angled performance at 30 degrees, 150 meters, the 540B is already the same. And at longer ranges, it's just better. For instance, at 60 degrees, this one won't upper front plate the Panther. This one actually can. Or can get very close to it. So this one is just a little better, especially at longer ranges. So if you compare, for instance, the 500 meters, we have a over, like, what is that? Like almost 15-20% difference, 62 to 75. So there's basically almost no scenario where you'd want regular BR540 over the other one. I guess the only corner case is maybe shooting a Tiger II through the turret face. That's maybe where BR540 could have the edge. So let's do the dance. There's something. Yeah, okay. This was one of those scenarios where you saw him, or you saw this NPC like drive backwards because another vehicle blocked his path, and he like started maneuvering around because that path was, I guess, blocked longer than it ought to be. So like the stationary turn like this doesn't feel wrong. I think that's okay. It's maybe a little on the slow side, but yeah, okay, that's okay. There's something I need to adjust, because when you look down here, it basically is forced down to shift into first gear, which it shouldn't. So there's something that is misconfigured here. Another major thing that is important to how well a vehicle steers is essentially the steering, how do you call it? I might not be able to translate that to English, that word, but it's essentially how willing the geometric shape of a vehicle is to steer. Maybe this one. Okay, didn't go through. Was a bit of a guess. The 80-ish isn't enough, so we'll have to wait for the normal one. But essentially, if you have a vehicle that is long and narrow, it's much harder to steer it than a vehicle that is short and stubby. So you might have noticed that stuff like the Panzer IIIs are generally pretty easy to steer, whereas stuff like the ISU here is a much more unwilling to steer. Inertia. I mean, this is not an inertia problem with the ISU. It's just flat out an issue with how the steering is configured, right? So, like, when I see that the vehicle shifts down into first gear when trying to steer at a certain speed, that's an indication that something is going wrong, because you should basically, you should only ever use first gear if A, your vehicle has like 4 gears, right? Or B, you're doing a stationary turn. And this is, yeah, like it's supposed to feel like a boat to a certain extent, but it's not supposed to feel like unmanageable, and at the moment it's somewhat unmanageable. So it's way too frustrating to drive, and it's fine if a vehicle is hard to drive or slow, but it shouldn't feel frustrating like you have to fight your vehicle all the time. We'll just do this and then wait for it. Or maybe not, he's just gonna let me reload. Fine. This is another thing at the moment. In the old demo, you don't actually get knocked out from your vehicle, right? And they will continue shooting. That's also a bug that's already been fixed. We were under quite a bit of time pressure to get the last playtest in before Christmas. And I'll be honest, like some of these things, it just shows, right? On a positive note, other changes that are coming is there will be a significant expansion of the vehicles, or the available vehicle roster. We already have a Panzer II model, we have a bunch of vehicles coming in. We'll start essentially filling in the gaps, and we'll see how far we get until release. I think we'll be able to get a decent roster for all the main nations sorted until then. I'm not sure if we'll manage to get all of the lines. That may take a while, but we'll see. We'll just shoot for the stars in that sense and see how far we get. Another thing that's also going on at the moment is we're building some custom assets. So one thing that you can see right here, like this house doesn't look particularly good, right? And the reason for that is because we're a small studio, we can't build custom assets for everything, right? I mean, sure, if we had like a pixel art style game, that'd be easier, but we don't. So we need a decent art quality for the assets that we use. And it's a lot of work to build a complete environment from scratch, including every single building and every single asset that you spread around the map. So what we're doing is step by step we're updating the worst offenders essentially. There's a bunch of new trees that are coming in that look a lot better than the ones we currently have. And this should also help improve performance, because a lot of assets that you can essentially get off the shelf neither look particularly good, nor do they have crazy good performance. They're usually not optimized very well. And it's just something you have to deal with, right? But it's just I think you have to hack away at it, and the larger your library of custom assets that are high quality is, the easier it is to build new maps, right? Oh, yeah, absolutely, Critium. You're 100% correct on that. There's a lot of things that I've seen where you grab an asset and you're like, hey, that could be really cool, it looks fine. And when you try it out, or when you look in the description, depending on how accurate those are, you will see that, oh, it turns out this building has 3.5 million vertices, which means that rendering that building will be about as expensive as rendering the entire screen. And that's just, I think it's mostly due to a disconnect between the education that a lot of 3D artists have and what is actually required in the industry, right? They just don't know, they only render an image, and they do stuff like adding, 5 bevel loops, which makes the object they build look super good even if you're 2 inches away. But it costs a huge amount of performance, and you basically can't see that if you're more than, a foot away or 30 centimeters. So they spent an awful amount of resources on doing something that you practically cannot ever see, but it essentially completely destroys the asset and makes it completely unusable for actual game production. That is quite unfortunate, but there's nothing you can do about it, except for control the variables with the modelers that are working for you, right? That's why our vehicle models are well optimized, right? They're not perfect, right? We have some old models that aren't as pretty or as well optimized, but they're all okay at least. And then you get something like a certain building that is basically enough to nuke your entire map's performance if you put it in somewhere. With these, the main problem is texturing. It's just the artist that textured them, I think, isn't very good at texturing. They're just inexperienced. Or it's not their main job, to put it that way, right? It's not what they've focused on. So that's where you see a lot of this looks very flat or bland, you could argue. And that's that. I don't know what this stance is here, I'll be honest. But I'm pretty sure it's the same as essentially the entire driving shenanigans. For instance, if you look at this tank, the textures look pretty good, right? I think they certainly look alive. I'm not sure if I'm even playing on the highest quality. Pretty sure I'm not, but like this looks like a reasonable, conceivable tank, right? Like you have wear marks, the textures aren't overly glossy, you have decent color. So this is fine, right? And then of course other things like certain assets over here, they're just, you know, off the shelf. Right. Good thing is with these you don't really see that. This may actually be an LOD issue where a lower LOD is displayed. Maybe the top one was taken away. But a lot of other assets just aren't that pretty, right? And that's a work in progress that will just sort out over time. Oh, I think I might have broken the vehicle carousel there. About light tanks for the German tech tree, well, chances are there won't be that many, right? So I can have a quick look because essentially our tech trees are fully planned, but there's not gonna be that much for the German tree really, right? I mean, a lot of things will get moved around, right? So for instance, a lot of people see this and they say, oh, which Sherman will go here? Well, actually this one is going to move down, right? Because the Jumbo Sherman doesn't belong here. Both of these will move down. It's just for, I guess, historical reasons with the T14 being here. These were placed at 6 and 7 because for the moment, for testing, like it works and it doesn't matter progression-wise, right? But something like an M4A 176 is essentially more equivalent to a Panzer IV-H. It's not equivalent to Panzer IV-G, right? It's not equivalent to any of this stuff, right? It's just not really. And that's why these will both move down. We have a Pershing, so we have a new model for that. That will land at 7, because it's essentially on par with the Tiger. They're quite similar, you could argue, both in weaponry and armor. And that's just some adjustments that are going to be made. Also, the Jumbos will probably move up, to be honest. And they also get textures. So you shouldn't focus too hard on where vehicles are placed at the moment. It really doesn't mean that much. But for the German light tanks, this one will probably move down a rank, to be honest. Simply because the gun isn't very good. Like, yes, it's a Panzerhalle at rank 6. But it also has a very wacky turret, and will probably, we'll probably put something like a VK2801 somewhere in this region. And then there's not a lot at the higher ranks. The only stuff you can really put there is potentially the Swiss Laupens. If you know about them, they're essentially a Hetzer-based light tank concept, but we'll unveil that with time. What else? Let me have a look. Some vehicle that we haven't tested at all. You can also see in this version there's like some minor faults in the tech tree. It's essentially our internal offline version of the demo you guys have. That's why there's more vehicles available, and some stuff like this isn't set up at the moment. This is all fixed, of course, in the development branch of the game. Let's have a look at the T44, actually. Let's do that. So we'll hop into a test drive, get back, and by then the carousel should reload. speaking of, the T-44 still has the same gun as the T-34-85, right? And essentially the big change with the T-44 is the vehicle stayed in service for, you know, a while. Oh, what's down here? Did I? Oh, ha, okay. I guess I fumbled and simply added a very long search filter. That would explain it, so it was never broken. Working as intended. Let's have a look. Where's the T-44? Am I blind? There it is. Is another one of those cases where you have essentially better performance at flat angles and short range, but the other one is just the better all-round version. Like, especially when talking about medium ranges or angles, it's generally just as good or on par. Hey GG. The planned release date hasn't changed. It's still end of March or early April 2026. There will be some playtests in between, of course. So maybe this may be the time to announce that as well. We're currently planning for another playtest in end of January. So probably January 31st. Might have to shift that date by 1 or 2 days, but January 31st is the day we're aiming for at the moment. What do you mean with that, Tritium? Oh, that's another thing. We'll get these stupid things fixed. Well fixed. Essentially, the problem is that these can't be destroyed, and I actually managed to ram into here. This is just essentially something that happens in all video game physics. If you ram something at high enough speed, it's possible that you can like glitch inside it. There's just no way to ever fix that. Basically, it can always happen. And in this case, it's particularly annoying because it's an object that you should be able to just destroy. So. I might actually go ahead and adjust the T-44 steering a little bit. I think it maybe needs a little bit of help in the low speed area, just a little bit. I mean, you can't pen heavies with the HE shells, right? You can pen a bunch of things because you have almost 100 pen. I think you're more referring to the fact that you deal a lot of damage. HE currently deals more damage than it should. So you might deal 600 damage or something when you shouldn't be dealing that much. So it's not a full pen, because if you have a full pen you deal like 1k plus, right? Oh no, I got stuck again. I mean, something like getting stuck here is also going to be fixed by essentially making the houses destructible. Yes, so the specific issue with this is how AG essentially handles blast, right? Um, the direct hit of the AG round, that one works. So essentially, if you shoot a flat plate that doesn't have thin armor next to it, you will deal very little damage, maybe a bit too little actually, right? But I guess the blast wave and the fragmentation deals too much damage, right? And that is why you will deal like 700 damage shooting a mouse in the turret, though arguably shooting the lower part of the turret for the mouse should still deal a bunch of damage with something that big, right? It just shouldn't be as close to the full AG round. The KV-122 is going to move somewhere else, right? I mean, the fact that something is currently placed in the tech tree has no meaning whatsoever at the moment, right? So, of course, the KV-122 is essentially a weak version of an IS-122, right? So this one will get moved out into collectors, right? Then again, as you can see there, like the A34, for instance, is also a collector's vehicle, right? Or it will be a collector's vehicle. It's not going to be a normal alternative to the T34 because it's essentially a lightly armored, much faster T34, right? And that's what it is. Thomas, I can't disclose such numbers because that's business relevant information. It'd be extremely stupid to tell that to the competition, essentially, right? That's just not plausible. It's the same as, for instance, data centers. They also don't share information about their power usage, right? Johnny, yeah, there will be, right? Like close to the release, there will probably be a few test phases where servers are up all the time. It's just that at the moment there is no point in making or launching an online test where people can play multiple days in a row, because there is no incentive, right? There's nothing to unlock in the game, and if everyone comes in, plays, let's say 2-3 hours, that's fine, but we'll have servers running for a long time. We'll spend money and resources and time that we should use developing on that, and queue times will probably be quite long and so on. So there's that. Why the IS-3M heat was nerfed? No. It was switched to a different heat round, right? I think it was actually, I don't know, I think we actually buffed the damage a little bit. The problem with IS-3 at the moment is that it's better than it used to be, right? But the issue with the IS-3 is, first of all, that the model is hideous. It's an old 3D model. It's not good at all, right? We have a new one for that. It's just not textured. The problem with IS-3 is that initially when it was introduced, we only had mouse in IS-3, right? And the problem is that the IS-3 is essentially useless against the mouse, right? Like, it can't pen it and it just gets kicked around. And we need to introduce more and more vehicles to increase the variety or the vehicle pool at high ranks. Because the IS-3 is essentially a vehicle that falls more into a medium tank bully role, right? It has very strong armor. It has a serviceable gun. It's alright, it hits hard. It doesn't have super high pen. So the problem is, if it has to face something like a mouse, it can't pen that thing, right? So that's why, for the moment, we gave it a heat round. The BK7M is, I think, actually inaccurate for this gun, but it's a temporary measure, right? So the final balancing of which ammo the vehicle will get will happen on release, when there's enough vehicles that we don't get only mouses at high rank, essentially. That's the reason. So essentially, when the game goes live, you probably shouldn't take the IS-3 to the heavy route and fight a mouse with it, because there's just very little options for you to fight that. Uh, about that, Nick. So there's a few things we need to clarify for answering that question. So first of all, skill-based matchmaking can vary hugely depending on how it actually works, right? You can argue that trying to get the overall same skill amount in two teams is skill-based matchmaking, right? You can also argue that skill-based matchmaking is something like Modern Warfare did, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, which was hugely unpopular, right? We're trying to have some form of skill-based matchmaking in the sense of we want both teams to have equal chances to win, but there's not going to be a essentially competitive matchmaking for random battles. So you're not going to be thrown into a lobby of great players just because you had 3 good games in a row, right? That's not going to happen. The goal is to have an even playing field where everyone can have fun games and, you know, fulfill the role that their vehicle needs to fulfill, right? That's the goal. And one of the first steps to achieving that is not actually in how you build the teams, it's in how you build the vehicles. Because when you have completely overpowered vehicles at certain levels, that breaks matchmaking much more than any sort of team composition could. Well, as mentioned before, Stanislav, the plan for releasing the game is currently end of March or early April 2026. I think those are all sorted pretty much. We can have a look at the Panthers maybe. We're also working on a new custom shader for the armor inspector. I'm not quite sure if we'll be able to make it work, but it should help players find weak points. It's really tricky to make it work because we don't have something like War Thunder or Wall of Tanks' armor system. So that's it's much more complex to actually make it work. But I think we're making headway, and that should be a big step up in the armor inspector again. It should make it much easier for people to, you know, figure out weak points and where to shoot. I mean, in this iteration it's probably the Bulldog, to be honest, simply because the Bulldog has the autoloader now, so there's that. Speaking of which, the autoloader will be an actual upgrade for the Bulldog, so it's not going to just have an autoloader all the time. It's a modification you have to unlock. And that's one of the things we're also working on at the moment. It's the basis is already built. It's essentially an upgrade system. Like we know from all the other games, right? You can spend your points to unlock a vehicle and to also upgrade it. And it's a very big system, right? It's not something you just wanna jerry-rig, to put it that way. You want a proper implementation. And because we also have many other things change. We don't just change the damage output or the reload of a vehicle. You can do things like install additional armor packages and so on. All of those things have to work, and our upgrade system needs to accommodate all of those. That's why it's a bit harder to implement, but we have a first implementation going, and I think we'll be able to test it in the next playtest, hopefully. The Panther, the Panther needs a little bit of help maybe with the low speed steering. There's also another tiger around the corner somewhere there. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, the research trees are fully planned, right? We do have finished vehicles as well, by the way. I think that may be relevant for you. So there's a lot of stuff planned. It's just that we have a gigantic amount of vehicles that we have to add long term. We're talking about like more than twice what World of Tanks has, right? It's even more vehicles than War Thunder has when you count planes as well. So there's a gigantic amount of vehicles, and we can't just drop like 1,800 vehicles, right? That's the current number we're sitting at, not counting like individual variants of vehicles. It's just the you could argue the base version. That's around 1,800, and like adding that alone is realistically a significant resource investment, to put it that way, right? It's more than World of Tanks and War Thunder added over what, 15 years now, pretty much. So you can see that we have a long-term agenda for the game, but we haven't decided when what is going to make an appearance in the game yet, right? That's going to take a while, but I think there's something to look forward for everyone. Hey Kartoffelkäfer, frohes Neues. Alle Finger noch dran? I might actually go ahead and just switch over quickly. I think for that we might actually have a vote, to be honest, right? We'll just have a look at what the community wants next. I'll be right back. I'm just switching over to Unity to show a few things that are not in the build yet. The French certainly have a lot of unique vehicles, and I'm looking forward to them, because there's a lot of, let's say, special things that we can do with the French tree that no one would expect, right? Like, I don't think public awareness really, in general, the public is aware of the fact that we have stuff like French super heavies. I think that gets ignored very easily. Well, it's not a democracy in that sense, right? But you know, it doesn't really, does it hurt us if we ask people which vehicles they want to see next? Don't think it does. Let's see, we should be able to switch over. Okay. So there's not going to be sound. It's just a little. Sometimes in the editor, things don't quite load. So as you can see, this is the Unity editor. This is not a build of the game, right? So we might have to wait for some shader compiles, or wait for lighting to load in. It's just the way it goes. When you see where your shop went during a match, the problem with that, mostly, Johnny, is that it cannot be optimized to a certain extent. The main issue is that the reason why you lose a lot of frames is because you have two cameras rendering instead of one, right? So while there are some strings we can pull, we can't optimize it to the level that someone like War Thunder can, because we don't have a proprietary game engine, right? There's some things we can do, but we can't do magic. And the simplest way to optimize that would potentially be to just turn it off, to be honest. Like, you can absolutely play without it, but there's I don't think there's that much we can do at the moment. By the way, here is the Stuki 100 in the textured version. So this is how that looks. I'll just let it spin for a minute. You have a form where we can leak classified documents to prove our points. I know what you're getting at, right? The thing is, for the arcade game, while we do rely on, or while we do use real life values as a basis, right? We don't build a one-to-one representation, right? Like there's no point, because the game needs to be balanced. And for realistic, you simply won't see some vehicles, I'm pretty sure, right? So especially wheeled vehicles and high penetration heat rounds, all that kind of stuff, can be severely misrepresented in these games, right? Like when looking at War Thunder, you will see that especially the higher levels are a lot of like car heat slinging racing meta is present. And the problem with that is it's really unhealthy for gameplay, and it's also extremely unrealistic, right? Because there is a reason why we still have tanks with armor. There is a reason why we don't have armored cars running around exclusively. And that reason is armor and other threats. Like on a battlefield, you don't just fight against other tanks, which is the crux of the issue, right? Like a lot of these games reduce combat to a tank versus tank scenario, or maybe throw in helicopters or planes or something like that. But there are a lot of other threats on the battlefield, and unless you bring in everything, and I mean really everything from start to finish, it's going to be really, really hard to give everything a use, essentially. And I think it's better if you just focus on certain aspects and you state, okay, it's fine, like certain things don't need to be part of the game. It's better to have healthy gameplay than to have some weird wheeled car that essentially breaks game balance just for the sake of having it. You know, we all remember stuff like fully stabilized 1980s anti-aircraft vehicles at a World War II battle rating. Like, what's realistic about that? It's not fun. So that's that. Getting back to the forum, there will be a forum eventually, just not right now. Essentially, Discord is our forum at the moment, but vehicle performance at the moment is also not the main factor we concentrate on. So like balancing all the vehicles individually is not a focus point. As you heard before, some vehicles aren't even at the rank that they're going to be at later, so there's little point in trying to fine-tune or balance something like an M4A 176 when it's literally at the wrong rank right now. Also, we have a Nashorn in here. This one's pretty new. I don't know if you've seen that. We can actually take it to the test drive quickly. Yes, regarding that, Tritium, we do have wheeled vehicles. We can have a look at them in a few seconds, but they have a few, let's say, interesting limitations. By the way, as you can see here, there we go. So in the editor, when you fire for the first time, the shader has to compile, which is why they're going to get stuck here, because the game lagged for a second. As you can see here, we have like a full animation for the recoil. What we might do later is also add like the sliding breech block and the shell ejection, but for the moment we'll just stick with this. Also, we have reduced texture quality here, simply because it's the editor, so we're not playing the game at the highest quality level. Yeah, Thomas, there is most likely going to be a weasel, right? I mean, there will be a weasel, right? Like 100%. Um, it depends on which loadout exactly you're talking about, right? But we will, when I have a look, we'll probably have 2 or 3 weasels total, right? Like the Weasel 1A2, and then maybe Weasel Mel's as well. Those are probably the 2 that we're planning. This should be the later hull, yes. Yes, this is the big hatch one. Speaking about armored cars, I mean, this one isn't textured, right? So as you can see, this is essentially a placeholder. The vehicle will have to go through the texturing and some QA processes, but what you will see, specifically for you, Tritium, and I think everyone else interested in armored cars, armored cars aren't even fast necessarily. So for instance, this one, I think it has like 7, 8, no, I think like 10 horsepower per ton. So as you can see, like, yeah, you know, like if you accelerate for 15 seconds down a hill, it gets going decently quickly. We get up to around 50 kilometers an hour, which is essentially the advantage it has. Like tactical mobility, you can get into positions at the start of the match. But it's not crazy fast or anything. Like I'm steering as hard as I can. This is the tightest circle that I can turn with this thing. This is the extent of what's possible. And like anyone can. All right. Sorry, I was gone for a second. My microphone had a tiff. Will there be an EBR90? I mean, which EBR90 do you mean? There's like 10 of them. But, I mean, there will be EBRs, yes, but they will be very different. So you shouldn't expect that the World of Tanks representation of how an EBR works is reflective of how Steel Aces handles that, right? I mean, you just saw the BA6. It's essentially, it's a cardboard box that is not even fast, but it has a good gun. You're actually perfectly on point with that, Tanker. The BA6 is actually built on a truck. It's a modified truck, and that's why it's not super fast, right? The truck itself, I think, is designed for a top speed of like 70, 80 kilometers an hour. Nothing special. Let's move texture quality up a little bit. Is the new Pershing model. I might have a look. As you can see here, it's at rank 7, and when these 2 move down, you will be able to branch off over here. So these 2 are still at 6 and 7 respectively, but that's just temporary. I think the M4A, I don't know if there was an M4A1 FL10. I thought it was an M4A4, right? But chances are I'll just leave it the way it is for the moment until we get around to adding French vehicles, Tanker. So anyways, I think that's pretty much it for the day. I don't think there's much else to show off. And yeah, we'll keep you guys up to date and have a wonderful new year. I'll see you at the next playtest. Speaking of which, just to remind you of the date, at the moment Plan is 31st of January. We'll drop some announcements later on. We'll make sure that you can't miss it. That's the next big playtest, and then we'll roll with the punches. The Puma with the Pak 40 will make an appearance. I mean, we already have the Boomer, or the hull, so this will be adjusted. You'll get that Pak 40. Don't worry. You just might have to wait a little bit, tanker. All right. Everyone, have a wonderful day.